What's going on, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well, having a good Thursday. Nearly forgot what day it was. Thursday morning. Welcome back to another edition of the Morning View. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. December is here, which means you can see it top right corner. If I get my pointing, I'm not very good at pointing, but the UV logo has a Christmas hat on it now. And people have asked for it. People have demanded it. The holiday UV Christmas intro is coming back. It's coming back. It's the Morning View, so we can't play it this morning, but it is on its way back. So stay tuned for that one. We have, you know what it is, Mina, is that Josh is very entertained, and so am I. I push for this a lot by themed intros. So far this year, we've had a Jamaican one, a Thailand one, an Australian one, a Halloween one. What other one?
Why the Jamaican one?
Flex was on holiday in Jamaica.
Oh, okay.
It's simple as that. doesn't really need to be a rival reason, but we've always got them. So there you go. So yes, the UV holiday intro will be coming back. How are you doing though this morning, Mina?
I'm doing good. Not a lot of explosive United news, so that could be a good thing. That could be a good thing somewhere. But I'm good. World Cup burnout is real though. I can't lie. Very
real. Very real. I mean, I've got to the stage now where I was watching it last night, but at the same time, I am sort of doing things around the house when it's on. You know what I mean? I've got to that stage where before it was I'm going to sit and I'm going to watch it. Now it's on in the background. I've got stuff to do. That's what it got to be. Exactly, 100%. So we're going to talk about that this morning. We are going to talk about the Glazers as well, as a report came out yesterday talking about when we could expect a sale of Manchester United buy. I know a lot of people want it really quickly, but we've got an update when it comes to that. What else are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about Marcus Rashford, the latest when it comes to his contract situation. Of course, it expires, I think, at the end of the season. So we've got the latest when it comes to that. Cody Gakpo, we've also got an update from Fabrizio Romano when it comes to possibly agents being contacted. Flex did touch on this yesterday, but we've got the latest for that too. And we were just talking before we went live, actually. I think people have been watching The Lone View because we've got an update on Ahmad as well and his development at Sunderland and what Manchester United make of that as well. Plus, we've got the latest when it comes to Qatar as well and today's games at the World Cup. But before we get into today's edition of the Morning View, this show is brought to you by Fresh Ego Kid. Now, this year, Fresh Ego FC, for the third year, will be facilitating their annual Community Giveback for Campaign for Change to provide an essential hamper and gifts to families from low-income, vulnerable, and at-risk families. This year, Fresh Ego FC is partnering with Anthony Joshua's charity, Clean Herts Community. This year, especially with the global inflation and fuel poverty, those families, along with other families, will struggle to provide the basics this Christmas. Last year, through donations, Fresh Ego FC were able to give back to 120 families. This year, they expect to be supporting more than 350 families. So a really well-worthy cause. But for a bit more information, here's a message from Anthony Joshua himself to provide more information and details.
What's happening, people? I hope you're good. So the festive period is fast approaching. And what I've come to realise is that a lot of people are actually unsure on how to kind of connect with communities and give back. So what I've done is my organisation has teamed up with another organisation to do some projects where we're going to be doing community work and spending time in communities and doing some give back projects, right? So we want to raise some funds, we want to get some items because it's going to be rolled out across the whole year as well. This ain't just a one-stop shop. So if you want to get involved, follow the link. Follow the Instagram page, the social pages for more info, and your help will be appreciated. We'll be there, I'll be there. It'll be a big community day. Don't worry about that, Leaf. And yeah, we appreciate your support fully, yeah? God bless, be safe, and I'll catch up with you all soon.
So there you go, a message from Anthony Joshua about this Community Give Back scheme for this Christmas. The link's in the video description to donate. It sends you to a Just Giving page. You can also find other ways to support a well-worthy cause. I believe there's an email address. Links in the video description. It's also the pinned comment in the live chat as well. And there'll be plenty of videos which will be supporting this well-worthy cause over this holiday period. So if you do wish, get involved. Again, very, very, very worth it. Let's start off, Mina, talking about the Glazers. Let's talk about Manchester United, steering it back to Manchester Manchester United, let's talk about sales. Yes, I saw the comments actually over the last few days going, I tell you what, it's gone a bit quiet. It's gone a bit quiet talking about sales of Manchester United. Well, a report from BBC Sport came out yesterday saying if the Glazers sell Manchester United, a deal is likely to be done by the spring. However, a sale will only be concluded, quote, if the price is right. I think it's actually quite important, Mina, for reports like this to come out, because when we hear a couple of weeks ago all of the the statement from the board and the statement from United and the Glazers, strategic alternatives, people get very excited and they say, okay, right, we're going to be sold tomorrow. But do we have to be realistic here of going, no, this is going to be taking quite a while?
Yeah, I think it'll take a while. I hope people don't look at like Chelsea and think that that is a normality for when football clubs are being sold, because I think that was special circumstances in terms of Abramovich and the government. He was pressured to sell ASAP. It's interesting though, because I feel like if a deal is agreed like by spring, does that mean that there's an actual handing over period where it's not actually sold until the financial year end, which is June 30th? That's the small stuff that I would want to know, because if a deal is agreed in the spring and they say, okay, well, we'll sell up at the financial accounting year, that would be June 30th once the season is over. Does that give new owners enough time to then come in on July the 1st and support the manager, hire new people if they want to hire new people in terms of, a football director or whatever? It's just a lot of uncertainties surrounding this, but the Glazers, they have to go. They have to, sooner the better. But it will be it will take some time. Definitely selling it will take some time. And it's annoying because I feel like what they value the club at and what the football market values the club at is two different prices from what I've seen. I'm seeing quotes about 7 billion, 8 billion. And then I'm seeing, Deloitte's football reports that are saying, well, last year we valued United at 4.2 billion or 3.5 billion. And there's a big gap between what the Glazers seem to value the team at and what the actual market is valuing at. So is that one thing that will also stop the sale actually happening? Because I don't think, is United a 8 billion? Yeah, I would say it is, but that's me just being biased because I'm a United fan and saying that it's worth a lot. It's just me saying it's worth a lot. But when you look at the market, I think, how much did Chelsea go for? They went for around 4.
It was like 4, it was around 4, wasn't it? Yeah, around that amount. And I think you're right. There's sort of two valuations. There's the realistic valuation of people actually in the financial world are going, actually Manchester United's worth roughly about, like you said, about 4 billion. But in the world of bidders and I suppose and these sort of tycoons and these consortiums and possibly state-backed options, their way of valuing it is comparing it to other franchises, I've noticed. So they look at Chelsea, like they go 4 billion, they go, United's much bigger than that though, so it must be worth more. Or they'll go, the record fee for a sporting franchise was the Denver Broncos in the States. That was, I could think, about just over $4 billion or something like that. And they'll go, yeah, but Man United's way bigger than an NFL side. So they must be worth more. And that's what the Glazers are looking for. They're looking for a world record fee. And I think in reality, they'd only be looking for that fee if they were confident they could get it. And again, this is where I think, discussions like this are so important, because you have to realize the due diligence and steps that go in just to putting the club up for sale in the first place. They'd have had, since the summer, or even going all the way back to the failure of the Super League, they'd have had meetings upon meetings and consultations upon consultations, spoken with, financial experts, and they've got the Rain Group who are facilitating this sale of the club. They've got their legal counsel. They'd have gone through over and over and over again, and even had informal meetings with some of these interested parties of, if there was a deal to be done, how much would you be willing to pay? How much would it cost? And so again, I think their price is that high because they're confident they're going to get it. And again, it's also, I think, really important to say that this won't get done overnight. To your point, people look at that Chelsea takeover and they think, well, that got done really quickly and it was a very public thing. But that was such an atypical situation, really somewhat unprecedented situation in which a football club, there have been things that have been, people have had financial sanctions in the past, but never an asset that was a football club, an institution like Chelsea, that was frozen. And it was to the point of, if they didn't get it sold within a couple of months, they would cease to exist. And there was a real possibility. There was all of those stories, wasn't there, about Chelsea having games where they didn't even have the budget really to travel. They were having to travel, was it by coach or something? I know, having forbid, terrible. But the point being is that they didn't have the budget. I think go to abroad as well
Europe,
for Champions League. They couldn't travel. They didn't have the budget for it. So it was a very atypical situation. So it was somewhat expedited and sped up. Whereas the United one is going to be a bit slower, and there is going to be a bidding war because the asset is so big at Manchester United. And to your point as well, when you're talking about the fees that are being spoken about, the 6, 7, 8 billion or whatever it may be, whoever purchased the club, they're going to want to do their due diligence. It won't just happen overnight as well, because financially it cannot. So to be honest, even the spring, when I heard that and they said, well, it'd be likely done by the spring, I went, that's actually fairly fast, actually, for a deal this big, is it not?
Yeah, definitely. But I do think that since the failure of the Super League, they've been wanting to sell up. And they've probably been looking at the market, looking at potential buyers. I definitely don't think, like when they came out with the statement a week or so ago, I don't think it was something that was triggered because of the Ronaldo thing. I do think that was the final leaf. I think that was the final leaf in the straw for them. But I do think since the failure of the Super League, they've been wanting to sell up. I think the debt has gotten too much, even though they continue to take dividends out of the club. Then Ten Hag came in, started demanding, 80 million, 60 million purchases. And I think that's when they were like, okay, yeah, we definitely know we can sell. Let's get rid. Because let's be truthful, they are going to make a heck load of money from the sale. The Glazers I get that they're businessmen and they came into buying this club as a business, but it's going to be very unfair the amount of money they will walk away with, given the fact that they've put this club in debt. And I hope whatever sale happens, that debt is deducted from the final selling price. Because there's no way that the new owners should then come in and have to cover the debt. And what happens when they choose not to, and they choose to continue paying interest on those debts? Those debts will just continue to rise. The interest will continue to rise. What we've seen with the Glazers. So that's one thing. I do think 3-4 months is a quick period to get a sale done. But like I said, I do think that this is something that's been in the works for some time now. I definitely think the failure of the Super League, which is what they were depending on for more income. Definitely from there, they knew that they wanted to sell up. I think I remember reading a report like a year and a half ago saying that they wanted to sell anyways, and they were looking to sell in the future. I don't think the future would be within 12 to 18 months, but they were looking to sell in the future. And I also think another big part of it is the fan protests. I don't encourage vandalism or going into stadiums when you're not allowed, but I think those stuff actually helped because they realized that the issue was bigger than them now, and the fans really wanted them out. So hopefully this is a deal that gets done eventually, with the right owners. I think that's the most important part. Owners that are willing to invest in the club and want the club to be successful, that don't see the club purely as a business first, success second kind of thing.
It's funny, actually, when you trace it back to the Super League and you look at some of the principal parties involved, and as much as United fans won't want to talk about it that much, United were a really instrumental part in that. By all accounts, it was the Glazers who were brokering with some of the big financial backers in terms of the banks in America that were going to fund this league in itself. You look at the big parties that really put that together. So Real Madrid, Barcelona, United, and Juventus. 3 of the 4 there, you now know why they were so keen on putting it together, because financially they were screwed. They were in a lot of trouble. Juventus, that was their Hail Mary. We see what they're like now. That's why that's why they're still technically, I think, involved in plans for it, even though that project is still alive. Barcelona, the same. They needed the money. United, to a lesser extent than Juventus and Barcelona, whereby, particularly for someone like Juventus, they needed it to operate and stay alive. I think the Glazers saw the Super League as their last attempt at actually controlling and maintaining control of the club. Because, as I've said before, I think the Glazers, realistically, they've just sort of seen themselves. They're at the point of no return. They're at a precipice where they're like, right, to maintain the valuation the club's currently at and to maintain the status that the club's currently at, we have to now invest. We haven't taken a penny out of our own pockets. I believe it's since 2011 when they last put any of their own money into the club. So it's over a decade. And we're at the point now where after a decade of not putting any money in and just taking money out, there's significant infrastructure that needs to be invested in. We need pretty much a brand new stadium. That's 2 billion. We need a new training ground, at least 500 million to $1 billion. We need major investment in the academy, the women's team, and other just surrounding projects around the Manchester area. So all of that's going on, and they're looking at themselves going, we don't have that. We don't have like 3 billion to put in. And if we don't put it in now, the club's valuation is going to decrease and decrease and decrease. So now's the point where basically they have to sell. And the Super League was their last attempt of that revenue source can facilitate, putting money into the stadium or putting money into the training ground or whatever. I mean, Richard Arnold said it in the summer, didn't he? And if you go back and listen to that discussion he was having with those people in the pub, which is a wild sentence as well when you still think about it. But when he was talking to them, he said it's about getting investors in to pay for the stadium or the training ground. Because he basically said, we can't afford it. We can't afford it.
But that's why I said, I feel like this is something that was a long time coming, and they definitely knew, like inside the club, whoever's senior ups, Arnold, Murtaugh, the Glazers themselves, I definitely think that it's not something that just popped up out of the blue. Because even like the whole stadium thing, people, like fans have been complaining about the stadium for years. It's not some people didn't just wake up after COVID, after the pandemic, and start complaining about Old Trafford. People have been complaining about it for a long time and have been asking for refurbishment. I remember there was a leak once in the stadium. I think it was around 2019 or 2018.
Yeah, when things
just and I was just like, how can a major club have that sort of dysfunction at their football stadium? And like I said, I do think it was something coming. Arnold definitely knew, like the Glazers were getting ready to sell up.
100%. I mean, even when it was put out there, I think it was last year, it was put out there, or it might have been earlier this year, I forget. But when they announced that they were, exploring how to improve the stadium, or they were meeting with, was it contractors or architects or whatever? And I'm sure those architects then said, okay, if you wanted to do this, here's your price. And they went, seriously? Like, we didn't have that. We didn't have that amount of money.
They probably thought it's cheaper if they just hire lawyers and whatnot and just sell the club. That will cost them cheaper.
Yeah, literally, they'll be like, oh, no way, we don't have. And that's again like the Glazers. Obviously, like the Glazers are very wealthy people in the sense they've got lots of assets and businesses, but they don't have the ability to put their hands in their pocket and be like, okay, we're just going to spend 2 billion on a new stadium. Like they can't do that. And they realize that. And most importantly, they don't want to do that. That's the important thing. They don't want to do any of that. They don't want to spend any of their money. So yeah, I think it's just got to a point where it's supporting no return now. And they're like, who knows in a year's time or 2 years' time, what the club would be valued at. We don't know how they're going to perform. The facilities will be then 2 years older. The economic situation is what it is at the moment in the world. Inflation is what it is. But come a year's time, 2 years' time, suddenly Man United might not be worth, or you might not be able to rather demand 8 billion, 5 billion pounds for a football club. That might have all changed. So I would feel like, again, I think they're fairly confident that they've already had, shall we say, informal bids of, if you were to put it up for sale, I'd put this bid out there, sort of thing. I think that's where it's going. Red Brown with the super chat says, I don't think people know how much 1 billion is. It's a crazy amount of money no one needs to have. It's nothing like 1 million for you people's heads. Yeah, isn't it like what a billion is a million, isn't it? Is that right? Yes.
No, I don't know. Is it not 100? I don't know.
You can have hundreds of millions, or is it 1,000 million? Is that right?
I don't know.
Either way, it's a lot.
Morning brain. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Red Baron says, football will eventually blow up without regulations. Look, again, the money being touted here is huge. But at the same time, the money being touted here is only being touted because there are people that are willing to pay it. That's the situation. Right?
Look, a million is a thousand. It's
1,000 million. That's what I thought, because you hear.
It can't be 100 million.
Yeah, you hear hundreds of millions, so it'll be 1,000 million. There you go. It's a lot though. It's a lot of money. And again, people. The only reason these figures are being quoted is when they do look at that Chelsea takeover earlier this year, Mina. They go, actually, there was a lot of people. that was interested. There was, you know, for the figures being touted, there was like several rounds of investors and people being excluded. So there's no doubt, and again, this is going back to why the Glazers are put the club up for sale. It's not as if there's not going to be people interested or willing to purchase. I mean, we could be looking at easily like a dozen interested parties that would all be willing to pay that amount.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the interest is going to probably come from American owners. And I think the Middle East is going to be one of the, the Middle East is the one that a lot of fans might be more attracted to, simply because they seem to have unlimited revenue.
Yeah,
Especially when it's
that's wealth. Yeah, that's wealth. Like,
that's wealth. That's a wealthy owner.
Yeah,
a business owner is something completely different. And I think United will attract easily way more interested parties than what Chelsea had. And I don't feel bad, but Liverpool being in this conversation at the same time as well. I haven't really heard much about them ever since this news came out. I haven't really heard much about them, but I don't think that they are looking to sell up as quickly as the Glazers are. I do think the Glazers are looking to be gone by the end of the season.
No, I agree. And again, you go back to like those sort of maybe a Middle Eastern owner or a state-backed owner. We talk about wealth that you can't really, you know, put your head around. Like that is wealth that, again, it's like it's almost unlimited like that. And I think to go back to the point of why some fans are interested in that isn't necessarily because of the amount of money. I think it's more because they do see the competition. They see Newcastle and they see City and they see PSG and they say, well, we're already so far behind in terms of, you know, investment in the club. It would take so much and so long for someone that doesn't have a similar amount of money just to catch up with them. That's the concerning point. But obviously, look, it's a very loaded thing. And to your point, I'm sure that there'll probably be, well, there already is. There's already been that thing where, you know, people like Dubai have been linked to it. Even, you know, was it the Saudi Minister of Sport came out and said, look, if it was a private investor from Saudi Arabia, absolutely we would support it because, you know, they're going to have Ronaldo in their league possibly soon, right? So
yeah, but I think they are also trying to dabble a lot more in football because they're bidding for the 2030 World Cup. So by dabbling in more football investments, they can say, look, we're a football nation. We own X amount of clubs in Europe. So for them, it goes definitely two ways. I think Dubai 100%. As well is one as well. Like I said, Dubai is the only major oil state that doesn't own a football club at the moment in the Middle East in comparison to Qatar and Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia. So I definitely think Dubai will be the silent runners out of all of them.
And to be honest, if someone like that does get involved and it gets into a bidding war, it's over. Like they will win it. If they get involved, it's just a case of how much do they really want to buy it. Because if they really want to buy it, they'll buy it. Like the money is that amount. But look, it'll be interesting to see if the Glazers just care about. Well, actually, I was going to say something so stupid. Then I was going to say if the Glazers, because you know, like Chelsea, it wasn't just about the money. It was also about pledging to buy a new stadium or invest in the club. There's none of that. none of that involved here. Glazers will be like, how much? Okay, you win. You won the bidding war. Exactly. Let's talk about Marcus Rashford. We've got an update on Marcus Rashford. Of course, his form at the World Cup is getting everyone talking, and his form this season as well is getting everyone talking. Now, his contract does expire, I believe, at the end of the season, but don't worry. According to the Mirror this morning, Manchester United intend to activate the one-year option on Marcus Rashford's contract. United also want to reward him for his current form by offering him a new long-term contract. Rashford's priority is to stay at the club. So this is quite an interesting one because I've seen... I think it might have been yesterday, I saw a comment saying, why is everyone focusing so much on Cody Gakpo and not tying down Marcus Rashford to a contract first? Rashford's deal has actually been sort of up in the air for, like 18 months, I think. Yeah, a couple of years. Because there have been a couple of attempts to get new contracts where it's... I remember after he didn't play, I think it was against Manchester City last year, there was the thing of, Rashford might be interested in leaving, you know, and well, I don't know about that. And then there was earlier this year, before the season started, the PSG stuff with, I think his brother, he's had talks with PSG, might be interested in going to PSG. And now is the time which probably he does deserve a new contract. But it looks like United are going to activate that one-year extension first. He wants to stay at the club. When do you expect that Rashford's contract situation would be handled?
Probably, I'd say probably this time next year. I think this time next year. If they're giving him a 1-year extension, is obviously to give them more time for negotiations, plus allowing him to continue playing. Out of all the players whose contracts are expiring this summer, I did think he and Luke Shaw would probably get an extension. Obviously, I think De Gea as well, his contract's expiring. Fred's contract is expiring, but I think out of all the people who have their contracts expiring this summer, based on their performance this season, I do think Marcus Rashford is deserving of it. The whole PSG thing, I never really believed it. I think that was just a way to kind of get the club back into discussions with him for a contract extension. But listen, Marcus Rashford is, like his chant says, he's Manc born and bred. This is a kid that's come through our academy. He's had some dip in form, but he's also had some high moments in form, and I do think he definitely wants to stay. And I can see him actually seeing his career out at Manchester United until he's 33, 34, however long he decides to play for. I think, I think he deserves that 1-year extension, and I hope that they tie him down to a 4 or 5 year deal that will keep him at United until he's about 30.
I think also it's about timing, and United historically, particularly over the last few years, their contract announcements have had terrible timing. They've been giving out deals when people don't deserve them, or they're not particularly in a decent run of form. I mean, even, let's face it, when Bruno got his contract earlier this year, it was during a really bad season for United. He wasn't, and everyone, but he wasn't playing particularly well too. And everyone sort of went, maybe he could have timed that one a bit better. If anything, now would be the time to give Marcus Rashford a new contract, because everyone likes him at the moment, right? You've got to time these things well, and it would be. I remember earlier this year, it might have been just a couple of months ago, Erik ten Hag. There was a report that came out, and basically, by all accounts, ten Hag said to the United hierarchy, "Look, put a stop on all of these contract talks and all of these contract negotiations. I'm going to basically hand them out myself, or tell you when you can give out a new contract or negotiate a new contract. And that's going to be based upon whoever gets this contract earning it. And if they earn it, they deserve to be here. Give them a new contract. Don't give them necessarily what they want in terms of astronomical wages to fit into that wage structure, but give them a contract because they've deserved to be here. They've earned their spot." And in fairness, you would say this season so far, and maybe this is why it's worth still waiting a few more months, because it is just, a few months at the moment. It's not a whole season or anything like that. But you would argue that Rashford certainly has deserved to be close to getting that, that new long contract. And as we keep saying, it's amazing the difference that, a year or so can make, because, even a few months actually, because when that whole PSG thing came out earlier this year, the reaction from most of the fan base, and I think this is why...
Let him leave.
Yeah,
people are saying
exactly.
Let him go.
Exactly. And if anything, sort of Camp Rashford actually backed off quite quickly, because the reaction was, go. If you want to go to PSG. Whereas now, I'm not sure if that would be the same reaction, but certainly the sentiment is much more positive towards him, I would think.
Yeah, and I think with the way that he's performing this season, especially not just for club, but for country, that's why I think a lot of people they want him to stay. Having the England top scorer at the World Cup currently, that's bragging rights for United fans. We can brag about that, because no other club can say that their player is the current top scorer at the World Cup for their country, specifically for England. So that's one thing, but also just the way he's performing, and also I think it's reassuring for him knowing that United are probably going to go into the market next summer for a striker. If the Gakpo thing goes through, that's another person that he's competing for in the starting 11. But the fact that he's getting a contract extension means that the team, the club, see value in him, and he's a part of the project. I hate hearing these terms sometimes, when people say, "Oh, he's part of the manager's plans," but I do think that he's probably part of the manager's plans if they're giving him a contract extension. And kudos to Ten Hag for taking it into his own hands. And because in the past, till today, Phil Jones is still on our payroll.
He doesn't have a place in the dressing room. He got kicked out of the dressing room, but he's still under contract.
He's still on our payroll, and I don't know who gave him that contract extension when he signed his last contract. So kudos to Erik ten Hag for taking it into his own hands and basing it on their form this season. If we were to base it on last season and just generally a player's time at United, some people might argue that Rashford wasn't worthy of it just because of the 18 months that he had Like
No,
some people might
100%.
have, but Ten Hag came in and said, listen, I'm going to start from this point of the season, i.e. the first game of the season, and I will decide. And if he ends up getting that contract extension, I'm interested to know how much it would be, because Jadon Sancho's on like 300 or 350.
I know.
And Rashford's on way less, like a bigger decrease than that. So it's interesting to see how much he would get. Is he going to be getting a De Gea type extension where he's getting 300k, 350k? Because then that's a different story. That's honestly a different story.
I hadn't thought about that as well. I forgot how much Sancho was on. And look, I'm never one to sort of criticize players for being on big contracts, because to be honest, that's on the club. But what are you supposed to do if you're a player? No, I don't want to make that much money. I'll have less. You know, of course they're going to sign it. But you're right. It is funny sometimes, football, in terms of, you know, players, the contracts they're on at the time, does it actually reflect their value or importance to the team? At the moment, Jadon Sancho is not worth 350k a week. Hopefully he can get to that in the future. Marcus Rashford, to your point's in great form. And, you know, depending on how agents go, and you never know, they might look at, you know, a Jadon Sancho and go, well, I play more than him, offer more than him. Why can't I get that? Or look at someone like De Gea and go, you know, I know I haven't been here for as long as he has, but I'm a homegrown player. I've been at the club for a while. I've been here since I was a kid. Why can't I get that amount? So that is going to be really interesting. In fact, let us know in the live chat, if Rashford is to get this new long-term contract, how much do you think it should be worth? I'm not sure how much he's currently on. I think it might be like 200, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I think less than 200. But one thing is interesting about Rashford is that whenever I see people outside of England speaking about Rashford, they love him. Luis Enrique was talking about him on one of his World Cup live streams, saying that
they're brilliant, by the way. Have you seen that?
Funny live stream. I don't understand it. I wait for translations half the time.
Me too.
but it's funny. But Luis Enrique, I remember seeing a clip of someone going up to like fans at the World Cup saying, who's your favorite England player? And people are saying Marcus Rashford. I wish I had Marcus Rashford on my club and whatnot. So it's very interesting to see how people outside of England view him, because they actually like him and his ability and just his talent. So if he wasn't hypothetically to sign an extension, or he just had his 1 year triggered and he ended up leaving, which I don't see happening, but if that did happen, I don't think there would be a shortage of clubs that he could go to.
No, and speaking of people that are also fans of him, I saw an interview with Mauricio Pochettino. I think he did an interview with Carve Solocol yesterday, and he was saying the same thing, going, he's a really good player. I really like him. And in this other, you know, universe somewhere, he's got his arm around him as the Manchester United manager. Ugh. Could have been a different story. VK with the super chat says, smash a like for our mods at Tabaslow and Steffi Jenks. Yes, of course, smash a like for our mods. Keeping the mods. Yes, always joining us every morning, every stream as well. They are the true hardcore fans. Be sure to smash a like on the like button as well, guys. Got over 400 people watching, less than 100 likes. We can do better. Let's get to 150. Let's move on and talk about Cody Gakpo, go from Rashford to Gakpo. Yes, it wouldn't be a morning view without talking about Cody Gakpo. Just a little bit of an update. Fabrizio Romano tweeted yesterday, quote, there are chances for Cody Gakpo to leave PSV, he said PSG, PSV already in January. Original plan was to sell him in the summer, but that could change after an excellent World Cup. Manchester United remain in contact with his agents, but there are 3 or 4 clubs in the race. Now, that worries me, Mina, because whenever we're in the race for a player, we can either be very slow starters or get quite desperate at the end. Now, is this where it goes back to Erik ten Hag just having to push and pressure the board, get this done now? I know for a fact there are going to be other clubs interested that do business better than us, and we need to get this done now, because if we don't get this done now, come January, we're going to be doing what we did in the summer, and that's scrambling around and possibly having to pay over the odds for a player that we're not even sure is going to work.
But do you think when they say like there's 3-4 clubs in the race for it, is that another thing maybe being put out by his agents to speed up United? Because I do look at these other teams that he's been linked to, and I wonder how he fits in. I mean, Liverpool just bought Nunes and Luis Diaz last January, so I don't know why Liverpool's in the conversation for Gakpo. Arsenal just bought Jesus. Are they looking for competition for Martinelli or Saka? I know that he can play off the Gakpo can play off the left, but it just makes me wonder, like, some of these teams that he's being linked to, I don't know if that's genuine links or if it's just something to speed up United and hopefully get his agents maybe want to get that deal over the table. It's an interesting one for me, to be honest.
I mean, I can, to be honest, I can see parts of other clubs being interested. I can see Arsenal being interested purely because they'll be like, look, I didn't even think Arsenal fans. No, I know for a fact Arsenal fans did not expect them to be where they are at the moment. And their thought process might be, you know what? We've got our best chance in years at winning a Premier League title. January, we didn't expect it. Let's just go big. Let's get a couple of extra players in because we know the schedule is going to be what it is. Last year, they didn't qualify for the top 4 because ultimately, come the end of the season, in those critical games, they had injuries and their squad kind of fell apart for the games that they needed them. So they might be thinking, look, if we just get a couple of extra players in, there's a real shot at this. So let's go for someone like Cody Gakpo, who's attainable in January. I think Liverpool, we've seen the start to their season so far. It's going to be interesting if they do buy anyone in January, because obviously they've got the situation with possible ownership going on. They don't really spend big anyway. They do spend in January, to your point. They did it last year with Diaz. Maybe they might just be looking at, in attacking areas, we need a little bit more. But I don't really expect Liverpool to purchase Cody Gakpo, to be honest, which is a massive jinx. So touch wood when I say that. And you're right, it could just be something from the agents to speed up. I mean, Erik ten Hag and Cody Gakpo do share the same agent. So again, maybe it could be a situation where the agent is telling Ten Hag, you know, there are other people interested, by the way. And then Ten Hag runs to the board and says, oh, there's other people interested. Let's just get this done. To be honest, Mina, either way, I don't care. Get it done. If this is what it takes to get it done, and get it done before the World Cup.
I have a question for everyone that wants Gakpo, especially now when we see the way that certain players have been performing this season. I'm talking about Marcus Rashford, I'm talking about Garnacho. If Gakpo comes to United, who does he displace out of our starting lineup? Given the fact that I understand that our front 3 or our front 4 is pretty much rotational. There's no cemented player really, except for Anthony when he's fit, and probably Bruno Fernandes. Ronaldo's gone now. Does that mean Marcus Rashford is playing up top as a 9? Does that mean Gakpo's playing up top as a 9? Does that mean Rashford is coming off the left? What does that mean for Sancho? What does that mean for Martial? What does that mean for Garnacho? What does that mean for any other Elanga? I know a lot of people are not keen on Elanga, but what does that mean for all those players? I don't know. I don't think, to me, that Gakpo is a out and out number 9. So that makes me think, is he going to solve our number 9 issues? Are we signing someone that can play as a 10, can play off the left, maybe play off the right, hypothetically speaking, but struggles to play as a 9, similar to Marcus Rashford? Rashford can play as a left. We've seen him play in the Europa League in that 10 role as a backup striker. But when he's playing with his back to goal as a 9, which is what Ten Hag likes, he's struggled. So are we going to have that issue again? That's one thing that I'm struggling to understand with the whole Gakpo links, because I know a lot of people are keen on him, but when he comes in, what happens if he can't play as a 9? Because we've seen it at PSV. If anyone has watched him, we've seen it for the Netherlands. If anybody has watched that, when he plays as the second striker, he's good. In that 10 role, in that left-hand side role, he's good. He's tall. He's got tall stature, which means he could play as a target man in the box. But can he play as a target man?
I tell you what it means. It means competition, and that's what we need. Erik ten Hag has said it, and all of his interviews and press conferences, we need players in attacking positions. And I think the fact that he's not a striker, you're right, and he's not the solution to being a striker, but he can do that. He can assist in that role for the remainder of the season. I think you have the ability, if you bring in Cody Gakpo, to move people around. You can play Rashford up front like he's played up front. It's not ideal, but he can play up front. Martial, here's hoping, fingers crossed, he's going to be fit to the end of the season. Gakpo can play off the right as well. He's done it for the Netherlands. So can Anthony. But Anthony, is he going to be fit for the remainder of the season? And in games where maybe he's not playing well, we do actually have an option on the right-hand side who could be brought on to positively affect the game. If Rashford's going to play up front, Gakpo can help off the left-hand side. If Alejandro Garnacho, he's playing there, Jadon Sancho, he can be moved to a 10. Cody Gakpo can be played as a 10 if Bruno Fernandes isn't playing well. I think it's options. That's the point. I think it's options. You're right. It's not the permanent solution, clearly. Come the summer, I do think we'll go big for that striker, that number 9. That's going to cost... I mean, what do number 9s cost now? A lot. you know, proper number nines, it's 70, 80, 90, even 100 million, who knows? But again, the January market for me is important to look at people that are attainable. And I don't see another attacking player that's as attainable as Cody Gakpo. Let's be honest. I know we don't like Rashford playing off the right-hand side. He got goals for England off the right-hand side in the week. I think it's important, and we did see this in pre-season too, where we did play really well. We had that front three of Martial, Rashford and Sancho. To have a front three, they can all switch around. They can all switch around into any position they want to. There'll be certain times in pre-season where the front three would start out with Rashford on the left, Martial out front, Sancho on the right. But Rashford and Sancho would switch. Sometimes Martial would drift out to the left and Rashford would come up front. Sometimes Sancho would drift into almost a striking position but play as a false nine. I think it's that kind of fluidity that Ten Hag is looking for. Historically, he's played more of a target man up front. But I think come January, I look at Cody Gakpo and I just say, well, if we don't get him, who are we going to get?
No, I'm all for quality in our squad depth. I know we always talk about squad depth, but I think the importance is having quality within that squad depth and having someone like Gakpo as an option, or even as a starting player that gives us better options off the bench in our players, in Garnacho, in Martial, in Jadon Sancho. Hopefully once his form returns. So yeah, I'm all for it. But I'm just curious. And then another thing that I'm curious is that, are we really going to sign Gakpo in January and then go sign a 60 million number 9, 70 million number 9 in the summer? Maybe if we get the owners and they got money, it will happen. But again, the market for number 9s, we're seeing it at the World Cup even, that a lot of teams are not playing with out and out number 9s. And when they're not, they are struggling at the World Cup. I know they are smaller nations, but I've seen it with Tunisia, even with Denmark. I've seen it, how they've been performing without an out and out number 9. So it'll be interesting to see if we sign someone in the summer as well as signing Gakpo. But I do think that the Gakpo deal, I'm just not sure about. I'm going to say I'm not too sure about it, just because I don't know how he fits. But if Ten Hag wants him, and Ten Hag has wanted him since the summer, then I'll back it. I'll back it all the way.
And to be fair, you're not the only one. I've seen a lot of discussion about that going, you know, is he, I was going to say, is he that good? Didn't really work. But basically saying, is he that good? Are we just gassing him up because he's got these goals at the World Cup? You know, what would he actually offer? Where would he play? And I think sometimes, again, you look at other clubs, you look at, say, City's bench or whatever for a game, they got so many great attacking players and talent on there. And I do think that there have been incidences this season where Erik ten Hag has turned to his bench in a game where United need goals, or they're struggling to break teams down, or not being clinical. And he's turned to his bench and he's looked who's on there and said, actually, I guess I'll just have to wait, because I don't like what I could bring on. I don't think who I would bring on would be able to positively affect the game. Not every signing, I think, has to be, they go straight into the first 11 every single time. No, they have to work their way in and they have to be part of the squad. Their game time will come. And as we've seen this season, people will go out of form, people will get injured, people will get suspended. And you need quality players in depth, which we don't have. And we're especially light now because of Ronaldo's departure. Red Barrow, the super chat, says, I think the age of the pure striker is dead. I don't know if it's completely dead. I think there are, you know, clear examples of proper number 9s out there. People like Haaland, etc. I mean, even older people like even Karim Benzema, or people like even Nunez, Harry Kane. I mean, it's not dead, but they are certainly more of a rarity, shall we say, and they're difficult to find.
But I think it's because football might be evolving. I don't know. I feel like football might be evolving from like this whole false 9 striker thing. I remember I used to look at teams thinking, wow, they're so weird playing without a striker. And now a lot of teams are doing it. So I do think the market for an out and out 9 is rare at the moment. I do think that we're not going to be able to go and sign Lewandowski, Benzema, Haaland. We're not going to be able to sign them. And then when you look at other out and out 9s, you think, okay, what is the other options? Ivan Toney, you know, he might not be an option anymore. So there's a lot of, you look at it and think, okay, maybe that's why someone like Gakpo could work at United.
Yeah, and look, that's why they're so expensive. Those proper number 9s is because they're around, but they're a valued commodity. And whenever you do see a striker that gets a season where they score 20, 25 goals, people go insane, because nowadays it's almost somewhat rare. So We'll see what happens with Cody Gakpo, but watch this space when it comes to that. Let's talk about Ahmad. Yes, we've got some future plans for Ahmad. We did touch on him when it came to the loan view. Be sure to check that out. Still up on the channel. And we have an update on the Manchester United player currently on loan at Sunderland from Samuel Luckhurst of the Manchester Evening News, saying Manchester United are hopeful Ahmad can establish himself in the first team squad when he returns from his loan spell with Sunderland. Sources at Manchester United believe Ahmad is thriving due to consistent playing time at Sunderland. A well-placed source suggests Ahmad needs a run of 10 games to showcase his qualities. And this is something we did actually touch on when we did the loan view, Mina, is that people forget when we signed him, I think he'd maybe played, I don't even know if he'd actually played a senior game of football. We signed him from a player that at Atalanta that had just, maybe one game, something like that. But it was mainly under 23s football. Clearly not the finished article, but is starting to show some positive form at Sunderland. And who knows, by the end of the season, when he comes back, might be a value player for us.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one thing that he's improved on drastically is his physicality. He's a small guy. He's a bit short. And I know when we joined him, he was a bit, physically, he was a bit small. And now he's bulked up a lot at Sunderland. And like I said in the loan view, check it out if you haven't watched it. His manager has a lot of praise for him just because of especially his physicality. His quality on the pitch is, he said specifically, his quality is undeniable. He's got talent, but one thing that he applauds him for is his physicality and his consistency with that during games where, this kid just runs consistently. He's always pressing from the front, putting a foot in for a challenge. He has like every other game, I think he has the most distance covered for the team. So he's definitely trying to improve. I think he's a kid that wants to get better. At Sunderland, he's getting a lot more regular game time. He's got like a few goals, few assists. But I do think that I don't think if he was to come to United, and I think he knows that too, he's probably not a starter, but he definitely can be an impactful player off the bench. I think he can play on the right, which he's been playing at Sunderland. He's been playing in that 10 role as well. So to be a backup option for both those sides, I think it is a good opportunity. And just getting the experience of playing in the Championship. Obviously, Championship and Premier League is different, but to get consistent playing time in the Championship where you kind of get the opportunity to, because he's not got a lot of chances at United. He hasn't really played much in the Premier League. I know he's played a few games for us in Europa. So to get playing time in the Championship is probably the closest he's going to get to any sort of English football before he comes back to Manchester United. So it was a good loan option for him. And I don't think he's one of those players that might have to go out on loan again in the summer. I do think 1 year on loan might actually do him good.
Do you think so? I was just about to say, because it still is Championship to even being a backup for Manchester United in the Premier League is still a lot. I still think he might be one more loan away. It might benefit him to have one more season, this time at a Premier League club where he's going to be playing week in, week out, to really adapt to the physicality of the Premier League and again, get that game time that he needs because he is still young. And particularly, look, if we do sign someone like Cody Gakpo, who can play on both wings, then his chances will still be limited. I mean, on the right-hand side, where he has been playing for Sunderland, for United, you've got Anthony. You've got, I guess, Alanga is technically, I guess, the backup to Anthony on the right-hand side, even though he primarily prefers to play on the left. You've got Alanga, and then Cody Gakpo, if he does come in, could play on the right-hand side as well. So he would still find himself still way, way down that pecking order. And I think maybe one more loan move. But look, I think a loan move to Sunderland, I said it during the show we did before, I think is a great move for him because whilst they're in the Championship, it's a massive club, big stadium, really well supported side. Of course, they're star for football up there. It's Sunderland or Newcastle. That's it. And even being in the Championship, they still get a lot of people come to that stadium. The pressure's intense. And the Championship is physical. If you want to improve your physical ability, because maybe the technical quality is a little bit lower, it's made up in terms of physicality. So, and particularly, again, that fan base will not allow you to not be physical. So I think that does work for him really well. But I still think he maybe might just be one loan move away from maybe seeing where his Manchester United future is at. But as you mentioned, Ten Hag has spoke quite glowingly about him in the past. So clearly they feel something is there. He was part of that transfer window, that bizarre transfer window of 2020. Maybe he might be the sole survivor from that one. I don't know by the time he comes back. I mean, Facundo Pellistri is playing at this World Cup, but you know, they reckon he might go in January, loan or permanent. Just briefly, before we go on to actually the World Cup, what have you made of Palestri's brief performance? Well, actually, he started one for Uruguay, didn't he? But what have you made of his performances?
You know what? I can't. It was the second game. I can't remember who Uruguay played, but he came on, and I think he did all right. I think he did okay in this, given the circumstances. I don't see him staying at United, which is kind of sad because I don't think he's been really given an opportunity. I do think he's capable of playing in the team. Like, there's no doubt in his quality and his ability, but I do think that his agent has made it already clear that after the World Cup he's going because he's not playing, and I understand that. He came as well in that very weird window, but if we were to sell him and we make a profit, then fair enough. But I would want him to get at least an opportunity at the team.
Yeah, I mean, I saw him play in the first game where he started, and it must be said he didn't play very well in that first game. And I don't think you can hold too much against a player for that, because we've seen plenty of players, especially in those opening games of the World Cup, not play well. To your point, I think he came on and he did okay in the next game, but he does play somewhat regularly for his country, and yeah, it's going to be interesting. To your point, his agent has basically said he's off in January. And Lil Yo with the super chat says, I think Facundo could give us a light 20 million. How much did we buy him for? Was it like 16, something like that?
Yeah.
If we can make a profit. If we can make a profit, that's what we're looking for. Finally, let's talk a little bit about the World Cup. Of course, you've got some combination of two groups today, that being Group F and Group E. Let's start off with the 3 p.m. kickoffs. You've got Croatia versus Belgium and Canada versus Morocco. There's so much discourse, isn't there, about Belgium at the moment. And look, they've got to win today. They've got to get a result. I think this goes to show that the FIFA rankings are a load of BS, because Belgium technically are the number 2 ranked side in the world. What a joke.
Yeah. But also, you know, I've seen so much coming out about this Belgium camp about players hating each other.
I saw that too.
Hazard and I think it was Courtois don't like each other. Kevin De Bruyne and someone don't like each other. Batshuayi and
the drama.
Yeah, because of that. Batshuayi and Lukaku don't like each other. Vertonghen came out after the game, and when they lost to Morocco, and when they asked about whether their team could win, he was like, "Oh well, we're too old, innit?" Which is basically referring to what was it Hazard or Kevin De Bruyne? I can't remember who said it. One of them said that they were basically, this team was too old to compete at the World Cup. They're not, like, they've not got the quality anymore. And I'm here for it. I'm here for the fall of Belgium. Not because I'm bitter or anything, but just because I feel like this era of Belgian football has been overhyped so much. And I get it. So? Yeah, I do feel like it's been overhyped too much. And I'm not going to lie, coming into the World Cup, I did look at the team and think, okay, well, I expect them to get out of the group stages. But now you're looking at them and thinking, wow, okay, they might not even get out of the group stages. They lost to Morocco. Great victory. And if I was to look at how the group stands today, I would want Croatia and Morocco to go through. I don't want Belgium to go through. But that's just me being biased.
Yeah, I mean, look, Belgium it's classic, isn't it? They had the golden generation, which is Belgium's real first ever golden generation. And their real chances, I felt, of winning something were, I mean, 2014, they were on the rise, weren't they? And I remember
2018 was their real chance, I think.
Yeah, it was, 2016, they lost to Wales, of course. And you're like, what happened there? And then 2018, to your point, was their real opportunity. And to be honest, I've just never really been impressed by them. I really haven't. And I think I'm surprised Roberto Martinez is still in the job, to be honest. And I can't see him going through today. I really can't. Croatia, I don't understand. They've got like an older squad and they've got their veterans still in there, but they'll just make it difficult, because if Belgium draw, it's not enough. It's not enough for them to draw today. And Morocco just have to get a result against Canada, which again is difficult. Canada, even though they haven't won a game, they did all right against Croatia, and then they just got absolutely battered in the end. But I think Belgium could be an early casualty today. I really do. And then the next round of games is the really interesting one, because Germany, speaking of people that have to get a result, Germany got to do something big this evening. And that's just to finish really second, because they're not going to catch up to Spain, whose goal difference is just astronomical. Do you see Germany getting through, or could we see another World Cup where Germany go out in the group stage?
It's big if they go out in the group stage, given the fact that I
Mm,
think really, I think Spain was their only main competitor in their group. It's not like they're in Portugal's group, who had
no.
Portugal and Ghana and Uruguay and South Korea and whatnot. I want Germany to go through solely on the basis that I am a huge fan of Jamal Musiala. I am a huge fan of him. I'm not even joking. So just because of him, I want them to go through, because I want him to have a good tournament and have a contention for young player of the tournament. But as an England, like someone who supports England and the history between England and Germany, well, I don't really want them to go through. But solely because of Jamal Musiala, I'm hoping that they go through. And I think that they do have the quality to go through. I think one thing that it's funny, what kind of came back to kind of bite them in the arse was what Rudiger did when I don't know, in the first game when he was running. I don't know if you saw that. And he was running
Oh
with
yeah.
high knees against one of the wingers, and then they ended up losing that game, which just shows you karma. You take the piss out of a player, and karma's going to come back to you. But
100%.
yeah, solely on the basis of Jamal Musiala, I want to see Germany go through. But they've got I think a difficult task ahead of them.
Well, I am the complete opposite of that. I hope Germany go out. They're playing Costa Rica, so you would expect them to win that game. I mean, Costa Rica, how they managed to win last time against Japan was wild, considering they've got they've got one shot on target across 2 games and they won somehow that game. I think from Costa Rica's perspective, look, I mean, Costa Rica's still in it, so they've got to go for it. And if they get a point, a point, it's probably not. Yeah, a point would be enough to go through, because if Spain beat Japan, then Japan would be on 3 points. Costa Rica get a draw against Germany. That's enough for them to go through. So you would think Costa Rica will just try and do what they did against Japan, which is just try and get everyone behind the ball, play for a point, and then maybe nick it. Whereas Germany need to win. And again, hope that Japan don't get a win against Spain as well. So there's still plenty to play for in that group. I've got a feeling, though, I mean, this is when you could get really crafty, because it's Spain. You could argue they could be like, well, actually, do we really want to win against
They might do
Japan?
it France and put out a weaker
Exactly.
team, like France did yesterday. Although their weaker team probably for France walks into a lot of teams, but Spain might do that, rest a lot of their players. But I think with Germany, one thing that they have to do is just be clinical in front of goal. They are another team that I don't think that they play with like an out-and-out number 9. So they play with like Gnabry, Musiala, Müller. They just have to be clinical with their chances and take their chances. I remember against Spain, they were creating so many chances, and Spain equally too, but Germany was creating so many chances. The last-minute chance that they created with Sane could have been the winning goal for them, and they kind of messed that up. So if Germany are, like, you look at Costa Rica and think, okay, cool, it's Costa Rica. But this has been a World Cup of upsets. Like, we've seen quite a few upsets this World Cup, and I do think that there's definitely more to come. So it would be crazy if Germany go out, but it is what it is.
Honestly, what if there could be Belgium and Germany could both go out today? 2 big hitters
Belgium,
go.
I'm hoping that 100% that they go out. I need them to go home.
Yeah, I mean, if they both went out, the thing is, that's when you start people having discussion of big teams going out. England.
Isn't the Germany manager? Isn't this his first major tournament with them?
Hansi Flick, yeah. I mean, it's shocking considering, his pedigree that he had at Bayern Munich, where he won everything in one season, and then Bayern had the nerve to be like, we're not really sure about giving you a new contract. He's like, what? I won everything. What are you talking about? So, no, it's going to be a big day at the World Cup, certainly. Lilio with the super chat says, when did Belgium last have a quality left back? And the eyes emoji. Now, I might be missing a reference there, Mina. Am I missing a reference? Or is that a legitimate question?
I don't know. Maybe I think he's throwing shade. I don't know if he's throwing shade, because I haven't watched Belgium enough to even name who their left back is.
Yeah. Red Baron with the super chat says, England versus Germany, only England take it seriously. That is actually a good point. It's very true.
That's true.
It's very true, because by all accounts, if you ask a German person about 66, they'll be like, yeah, well, we lost, but we've won it like 3 or 4 times since then, so it doesn't matter. Lil Yo-Yo says Belgium haven't had a left back in years. Even more eyes emojis. So There you go. Anyway, guys, we'll wrap it up there. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. Remember, as I mentioned earlier on, the link is in the video description to donate to the Community Giveback this year with Fresh Ego FC and Anthony Joshua's community program too. So if you want to donate or get involved, links in the video description. It's also the pinned comment in the live chat. We'll be back with plenty of great Manchester United content soon. Have a good Thursday, and we'll speak to you again soon. Peace.